42-year-old Betsy Faria was a breast cancer survivor who was brutally murdered December 27, 2011.
In a quiet town in Missouri, a woman named Betsy Faria was found dead inside her own home. She had been stabbed more than 50 times. But the most disturbing part of the case wasn't just how she died, it was what happened 4 days earlier. Betsy had changed the beneficiary on her $150,000 life insurance policy. She removed her husband and named her friend Pam Hupp. Why would you do that? 4 days later, Betsy was dead. That night, her husband, Ras Faria, came home and found her body. He called 911, and very quickly, police began to suspect him. Ras was arrested. He was accused of killing his wife. But there was a problem. There was another person who had been with Betsy that evening. Pam Hupp. She had driven Betsy home after her chemo treatment, and according to investigators, Pam was the last known person to see Betsy alive. But instead of becoming the main suspect, Pam became one of the key witnesses against Ras. Ras was eventually convicted of his wife's murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. For years, it looked like the case was over. But then, new information began to come out. The policy insurance became impossible to ignore. Why had Betsy changed it just 4 days before her death? And why had she chosen Pam? Pam said she had an explanation. She said Betsy wanted her money to eventually help her daughters, but the money, all of them, they went to Pam. She collected the full $150,000. Then the case took another shocking turn. In 2015, Ras Faria was retried, and this time he was found not guilty.
I was outraged. These are four innocent people who had nothing to do with anything. They were accused of murder in that courtroom. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. There wasn't one shred of evidence. Not one.
And so what next?
We filed the appeal and we'll do this again, I guarantee it.
He had spent years fighting to prove that he didn't kill his wife. But if Ras wasn't the killer, then who was? Investigators began looking at Pam Hupp again, and years later, another man connected to Pam was dead. His name was Louis Gampenberger. In 2016, Pam shot him inside her home. She claimed she had tried to kidnap her, but prosecutors said the story was much darker. They believed the killing had been staged to draw attention away from Pam and the investigation into Betsy's death. Pam was eventually sentenced to life in prison without parole for Gampenberg murder. And then in 2021, she was charged with killing Betsy Faria. Pam has denied killing her, and the case is still not finished. But the question remains, why did Betsy change her life insurance just 4 days before she died? Another question, why was Ras convicted when another possible suspect was so close to the victim? And what really happened inside that house on 27 December 2011? More than a decade later, the answers are still buried inside one of the strangest murder cases in Missouri. And perhaps the biggest question is this: was the policy life insurance the key of everything?